Hello, CSET Social Science, National University, David Goyette, continuing discussion of World War I, last segment, part 3. Treaty of Versailles, continuing discussion of that, or at least monologue of that. Peace settlement negotiated with the Allies, with Germany at the end of World War I. I am reiterating this. I talked about this earlier, but it's worth noting again. Focused on ensuring that Germany would never again be a threat to the security of Europe. Terms included a war guilt clause, let's get that right, a war guilt clause, in which Germany accepted complete responsibility for the war. Significant loss of German territory, including Alsace-Lorraine, which was given to France. The establishment of the Rhineland, the border between France and Germany, as a demilitarized zone. I mentioned earlier that the DMZ, or demilitarized zone, between North and South Korea is one you can point to today. The loss of overseas colonies, reparations. We know that reparations are monies sent from one nation to another to repair damage done, and disarmament. Germany was forbidden to have any battleships, heavy artillery, or submarines. This peace plan was viewed by many as too harsh. In the years immediately following the war's end, Germany faced economic depression. And many of you have seen the pictures of people wheeling their wheelbarrows up full of German marks, realizing that the currency was so devaluated that it was worthless. And so it wasn't possible for German citizens to, during the Depression, to buy much of anything with it. So you had wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread, per se, for example. You had some instances where they were rolled into logs and used as kindling, as firewood, because the currency was so devaluated. So, of course, this is all going to set the stage for our good buddy with the little black mustache, who is going to pick up all this desperation, and he's going to fuel that with some good old-fashioned hatred and single out a racial, ethnic religious group and bring in World War II. Okay, finishing up with the Treaty of Versailles. The instability in nations also led to a rise in totalitarian governments. My high school students always goes, what's totalitarian? Now, as college students, I'm sure you know what a totalitarian government is, but it's when you use the military along with the industrial complex to basically fuel a very focused, conquest-oriented government that doesn't allow for a lot of individual freedoms. Among those, freedom of speech, think of the Bill of Rights, burn it. But also it's very much organized around the state as Big Daddy, as the last word, and it's very authoritarian and militaristic. League of Nations. Created after World War I, the League of Nations was the first permanent international organization dedicated to maintaining peace. The League was first suggested by U.S. President Woodrow Wilson in an address to Congress in which he outlined the 14-point peace plan at the end of World War I. Please look up the 14 points and print them out for yourself. The formation of the League was one of the provisions of the Treaty of Versailles, and member nations included France, Great Britain, Italy, Japan, but not the United States. The League sought to pressure member nations to settle disputes with diplomacy. Failure would result in economic sanctions. We know that sanctions can be negative and positive. In this case, the sanctions are negative for the country getting them. If sanctions do not work, theoretically the League would respond with force. However, the League did not have a military force under command. The viability of the League was put to the test following the end of World War I. The League experienced a few successes, such as negotiating agreement between Finland and Sweden in dispute over the Åland Islands, but overall the League of Nations was unable to prevent war again. The League was dissolved after World War II and replaced with the United Nations. We will discuss the United Nations to a greater degree at another time. Mandate system. Mandate system is important to note because I have seen questions related to this on the CSET in the past. Not that you won't have questions on the other material I've discussed, but it's one of those areas that is easy to overlook, and yet they like to ask questions about it. So mandate system, let's talk about that. An article in the Covenant of League of Nations stated that the colonies and territories needed assistance as they prepared themselves for self-government, and that more advanced nations would act as guides for the less experienced ones. Influenced by the idea of self-determination, again, self-determination, the idea that a people can, with the consent of the governed, as we go back to Locke, Hume, and Montesquieu and Rousseau, this idea that the people can get together and get their leaders under a representative government and allow them to rule them. But without the consent of the government, you don't have that. In self-determination, the country basically, in a wave of nationalism, decides we need to be on our own. We don't want the colonial power to be over us. So Great Britain, please get out of here. Dutch, please leave. France, get lost. We want to govern ourselves. So whether we be in Africa, whether we be in South American nations, whether we be in some other part of the world, the colonial era was coming to an end as these nations demanded self-determination. Principle organizing, originating in the U.S. with President was, influenced by the idea of self-determination. A principle originating in the U.S. President Woodrow Wilson's 14 points at the end of World War I. Self-determination, the idea that a nation should have the right to determine its own future. Mandates were established in the former German colonies and the territories once belonging to the Ottoman Empire. France and Great Britain took control of most of the Middle East, including Iraq and Palestine. France gained control of Syria and Lebanon. Arab nationalists had hoped that the British and French would make good on promises of independence for the former Ottoman territories. Now, a lot of historians nowadays, to just throw in a tidbit of current events, a lot of historians trace back our current problems with Sunni, Shia, tribal frustrations along the Pakistani border, in Afghanistan, with Waziristan, issues having to do with Iraq today, go back to these agreements that were arranged not at the end of World War II, perhaps at the end of World War II, but more so at the end of World War I, when, as Britain had to release some of these lands into the hands of sheikdoms and groups that we created tribal frustrations and tribal issues. So there's a lot more to say on that, and this is not the forum to cover it. But I hope you got something out of this quick review. By no means is it all that entertaining. It's just me reading from the relevant cards on the topic. But I hope it allowed you to break away from sticking your head in the book and having to read line by line all of the finer points. If you have questions, please call me. I'm eager to help and assist to individualize your learning for the CSET. I've been there. I know it can feel daunting at times, so I encourage you all to do your best as you study. And have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.